Alright. All settled in, and good evening, everybody. We're just a minute early, getting things warmed up, so to speak. 1 minute
until showtime.
1 minute till showtime.
I had to get something for my tea bag.
Oh! Almost showtime.
What did I just sit on? There we go. You don't have the tackle, do you?
I did put the stories on there.
Okay.
I promise.
You promise here.
Oh, look. We're live. Hey!
We're live. Woohoo! Let there be life.
We're still not quite live with the Vibe Radio Network, but
that's
hey,
okay. We're
that's
getting
okay.
there.
We're just letting people get checked in. Everybody's getting their Facebook notifications that we're all good to go. And it's fine.
Okay, well, it's fine.
I'm assuming it's fine.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Having some technical something or other.
Okay, let's see if I can gracefully do this. By the way, there's going to be no grace whatsoever.
No, there's no grace tonight.
When you have to crawl out of a
Your
beanbag.
show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
It's fine. Everything's fine. All right, now we have everybody. So we got
Welcome everybody. Wow.
We got our friends at Facebook Live. We got our friends at the Vibe Radio Network.
We got a Lulu. She's right down here.
Yep.
Vincent, are you coming in?
We'll see if any of the kitty cats want to show up. They will at some point. But yeah, so...
Sir, that's my tea. You don't get hot toddy.
Your boozy tea. But yeah,
You
good
sure
evening.
get hot toddy.
So anyways, but yeah, glad that you could tune on in and join us here tonight. It's been a week.
It's been a very busy week.
I have no idea where the time's gone. It just seems like we were just sitting here 2 weeks ago talking to y'all about murder houses and stuff like that. And tonight we're taking a completely different turn at things.
We're going someplace I always want to go.
Yep, we have not been to this location yet, but it has certainly whetted our appetite to go ahead and our globe trotting the globe trotting itch.
Yes.
That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. But yeah, so we are.
I'm trying to read names on the print on the screen in front of me, which is extremely small. I see Alex. I think I see Lisa. Is that right? And Dana. And Chrissy.
Oh, that's why I'm on the wrong feed. Okay.
Silly husband.
Look, where is everybody?
Okay,
There's
there we
everybody.
go.
Yeah, now
Okay,
I got.
we're better.
Now I got.
Okay,
feed.
so what we've been doing this past 2 weeks, I've been building the Stranger Things set pieces for Halloween that are going to take place at corporate headquarters here at Hans of Richmond. So if y'all are up in Churchill and all of a sudden in September you start to see a Mind Flayer and a Demogorg and a few Demodogs and, oh yeah, Vecna, you know you found headquarters. I have 4 of them. Oh, he's a little fluffy.
Yeah.
There we go. So that's one of my Demodogs.
One of several.
Yeah. And I have Demobats too. So
There's a lot going on. We don't have a dining room right now.
we don't. It is my construction zone. And the staff, of course, is going to come in and be all different characters throughout Stranger Things. So yeah, that's the plan for Halloween around here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, so definitely come by and trick or treat in October.
Yep. But in the meantime, we've got 2 months to cover before we get there.
Yes, we do.
So,
well, 1 full month on a partial. But anyway, so we just did our last John Marshall house tour for a while because they'll be doing their own thing September, October. But we'll come back in the winter. I think we said January is what
January is what we're looking at, yep.
So that is that. We are actually, shall we announce it?
Yeah, might as well. We haven't announced
New
it.
tour!
Haven't officially announced it anywhere else yet. It is available on the website and whatnot, but we haven't put out a Facebook post or any kind of like media post about it yet. But
we do have a new tour.
Creepy Tales on Campus. It will be premiering, open to the general public on Wednesday, October 19th will be the first tour. So that is, it seems halfway through October on a Wednesday. It's when it fit into the schedule.
Yeah.
But yes, it's brand new tour. It is.
It's not all ghosts. It is Creepy Tales for a reason because we got some murder stories in there.
It's about 3/4 spooky stuff.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of murderous tales in there to round things out, and it's going to take place on VCU's Monroe Park campus.
Yes.
And it's all about stories, Monroe, people talk about VCU, Monroe Park campus, like it's been there forever, but it hasn't. Of course, it's,
It's where the well-to-do built their grand mansions, Ginter, the Scotts, Millheisers.
Yep, got a long, glorious and inglorious history behind the neighborhood.
And of course, those are all owned by VCU now.
Yep.
So thus campus.
Yep, so that is available if you want to join us for the premiere of that tour to the general public. It is on sale now on the website.
And of course, we do have our Scares That Care benefit tour that's going to be on October 22nd. We've got 2 guides set up for this, so we're hoping to sell out 2 full tours up here in Churchill. Be myself and Marcia leading those tours, and 100% of the tour ticket price goes to Scares That Care that night.
Yep.
So, again, it's the Churchill Chillers tour on October 22nd at 9 o'clock.
So, yeah, that's what we got going on, and our tour 7 days a week does wrap up next Monday.
Yes.
So that's when we'll be...
cut back a little bit, because we need to rest.
Rest up for October. So, but yeah, aside from all of that, yeah.
That's about it.
That's about it. Now, tonight, the show we have for you tonight is going to be a little different than usual because, tyically we take a really deep dive into a handful of stories. Tonight is going to be little vignettes. We're talking stories that are going to be like, 2-3 paragraphs long. I think there's like 15 to 20 stories in tonight's script. So this is going to go one of 2 ways. This is going to be really interesting, bouncing around and talking about spooky stuff in Venice, or it's going to be an absolute train wreck. Whatever the case is...
First time we've tried this many small stories.
Yeah, whatever the case is, you can take comfort in knowing that we are providing this to you for free. So, we hope that you enjoy this.
Everybody ready? Cheers! Oh, that's too hot still.
But, are you going to start reading?
No, you will.
Okay.
Because you like your intros.
And I will go ahead, once I do the intro, I will get back to responding to some of the people here in the chat. We're very glad to have you all chatting here, and I'll be back with y'all in just a second. But in the meantime, so, Venice, Italy. It is customarily sold to us as the most romantic place on earth. In a sparkling marketing spiel, we are presented with images of canals and gondolas in which couples hold hands and profess their love for each other to last them a lifetime. For tonight, however, place this stereotype aside as we reveal another side of Venice. The city's pale, ghostly face, which will send a shiver down your spine with its curving, labyrinthine alleys? Yes. Dark canals, deep wells, dense fogs enveloping the lagoon, and gothic palaces that seem to be from a dream or a nightmare. Venice is a place where you can feel the weight of many centuries and many intertwined human stories that didn't necessarily have the Hollywood happy ending. Before it was reduced to today's place of romance, Venice had a history based on a complex political system, strong international trade, and an ever-flourishing art scene. It was an empire that's influence was felt all over Europe, the Mediterranean, and further afield. Yet its command center had been erected on a series of tiny islets scattered across the lagoon in the Adriatic Sea. In that ever-inhospitable environment, people built their lives on the water in very close proximity to one another. It was a diverse society where every sin and virtue could flourish, from the active red light district where ladies of the night would flaunt their wares, to the dozens of monasteries where the noble families would send their surplus daughters. Venice had innumerable facades and a near bottomless pit of secrets. Many of these faces and mysteries led to the creation of fascinating legends which still hold the city in their mesmerizing embrace. So tonight we will take you through the mysteries of Venice where tragic stories, ghosts, and monsters lurk waiting to grab a hold of your imagination. So let's set the stage just a little bit more. When the fog rolls in from the lagoon on a cold winter evening, the whole of Venice takes on a rather ghostly look. It can be easy to get lost in the maze of streets between Rialto and St. Mark's Square. After meandering for some time, you may find yourself at Campo di Stefano. Not necessarily your destination, but an eerily beautiful spot all the same. In the evening, the darkness here is barely pierced by a handful of weak streetlights, But in the middle of the campo, you'll see an old water well that on one hand will seem to beckon for a closer inspection, but on the other will be crying for you to give it a very wide berth. Under these conditions, surrounded by the fog, cold, and darkness, Venice sheds its romantic veneer. Instead, it takes on a foreboding feeling, like something out of a film noir, where at any second something terrible can occur. And the fact of the matter is that at some point in the city's ancient history, something most dreadful has likely occurred in the buildings that surround you.
Dun, dun, dun.
And in we go.
Alright, so Caradero, the House of No Return. We start with a place near the southern end of the Grand Canal in the Dell'Orto district. The Caradero, or Plazzadero, was built in 1487, and it's of course unmistakable. It doesn't just seem to fit in with the buildings that are around it. It's a most beautiful building, very distinctive chimneys of a style that you would find in few other places. The pale facade of marble and Istria stone, richly decorated with circular medallions, is stunningly beautiful. Look at it too long, though, and you may find the sensation of pins and needles starting to crawl up your spine. It's not just for dramatic flair. For some reason, many people are afflicted by this unsettling feeling when they are just laying eyes upon the place for too long. The building was designed and owned by Giovanni Dario, a secretary of the Senate of the Republic of Venice. The home stayed in the Dario family until the 19th century. The curse of the nature of the building and its strange ability to kill nearly all who have owned it seem to have started right from the beginning. For about 500 years, the various owners of the residence have been struck down time and time again by violent deaths or bankruptcy. In the 15th century, the daughter of the first owner killed herself after her husband went bankrupt and her son perished in a fight. From there, things never got better. Over the years, tales of malignant spirits of the Caradero came and grew to be accredited with a long string of death and misfortune. The tales are so strong that an inscription on the facade of the palace reads, Ubris genero Jonas Deros, Giovanni Dario, the genius of the city, has come to be interpreted in a different way by many. People have pointed out that the anagram of this otherwise noble saying actually means Sabruna insidosa genero, I, being treacherous ruins of those who live under this roof. Other theories speculate that the palace has been built atop an old Templar cemetery, which apparently accounts for the incredible lack of luck of its owners. Local people call it the House of No Return, because of its tendency to eventually kill or ruin all of its owners, as well as anybody that has anything to do with it. The list of casualties and misfortunes of those associated with the house is impressive as it is grim, even in the modern era. In 1838, British scientist Rawdon Brown became its owner. After having the house for only 4 years, he suffered financial difficulties and was forced to sell. In the early 1900s, Charles Briggs, an American millionaire, met a similar end. After purchasing the Palazzo, he was accused of being gay and fled to Mexico, where his lover died by suicide. The famous tenor Mario Del Monco was seriously injured in a car accident in 1964. The Count de Lazans was murdered in the home in 1970 after only having bought the home at auction just 2 years prior. The Count's murderer himself was in turn murdered in London. Kit Lambert, the manager of The Who, died in mysterious circumstances just a few years after selling the house by falling, of course, down a flight of stairs. Fabrizio Ferrari, a Venetian businessman, bought the house in the 1980s and moved there with his sister Nicoletta. Ferrari lost all his assets after taking possession of the building, and his sister died in a car accident without witnesses. In the late 1980s, the building was purchased by financier Raul Gardini, who wanted to make a gift to his daughter. After a series of economic setbacks and the involvement in a kickback scandal, committed suicide in 1993 and never fully clarified circumstances. After the death, no one wanted to buy the house anymore. The building fell into legal limbo for a number of years. However, in 2002, the building was available for rent. It was during this time that the bassist for The Who, John Entwistle, stayed there for a vacation. A week after his vacation, he died of a heart attack. While the entire theory of the curse is based off of unconfirmed rumors of the Templar cemetery, there certainly seems to be enough misfortune surrounding this building to keep it off your bucket list, Templar cemetery or not. We won't be staying there.
Yeah, that, you know, haunted locations, good.
Cursed
Locations that have a tendency to kill their guests, that might have to stay off our list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might walk by it, but that's it. Walk, not stop.
You can see it on the boat.
Yeah. No taking pictures. Lots of comments?
Yeah, catching up with some people. We've got a couple of new people here tonight.
Woohoo, I saw there was somebody from Maine. Yay.
Yeah, that was Dana.
Dana.
Dana's up vacationing in Maine tonight.
Ooh.
So, yes.
Jolly.
Yeah, just a little bit. Hope you're enjoying the cooler weather.
Because it's way too hot here in Richmond.
Yep. And Kaylee is brand new here, and she says she takes it that we are Richmond, Virginia residents.
Residents,
yes.
Not natives.
Not natives, but we've been here for over 18 years. And we have a lovely home/corporate headquarters up in the Churchill neighborhood. So, yep.
All right, you ready?
Sure, why not? All right. So, we're going on to find the Palazzo Cantorini del Zaffo in the Venetian siesta of Canarengo.
Apologies to anybody who speaks Italian. We don't.
Canarengo, at the north end of the city. The Palazzo has an annex that is known as the Casino of the Spirits, which translates to Casino degli Spiriti. This is a small building built in the 16th century to host meetings between Venetian philosophers, artists, and learned men of the era. However, the palace and its annex were eventually abandoned. Strange noises could be heard at night coming from the direction. Some said that the place was cursed and that its religious cults would congregate there to invoke demons and spirits. With a name like House of the Spirits, or Casino of Spirits, it is of little surprise that these stories would pop up. Among the stories in the house's colorful history is that of the painter called Pietro Luzzo da Feltri, who lived there in the 16th century. Luzzo was working in an era of great Venetian art, but his legacy is apparently that of unrequited love. The object of his desire was Cecilia, one of the lovers of another painter at the time, Giorgione. And when Luzzo realized he couldn't have her, he killed himself in the building. However, his passing would not grant him rest. His ghost was said to return, pining for the lover he could never have. The day after he died, his tormented ghost appeared at one of the palace's windows, prompting the owner to cover it with bricks. Luzzo appeared at another window, and then another, until the owner walled in all of the palace's windows. Supposedly, Luzzo continues to haunt the palace to this day, returning on dark evenings, screaming throughout the palace. The Casino degli Spiriti also served as a hospital where thousands of Venetians died from the plague. Later on, the building hosted an anatomical theater where autopsies were performed. In 1929, the bodies of 4 people were found in the Casino degli Spiriti. Apparently, they all missing their heads and their right hands. Then a truly gruesome murder was linked with the Casino degli Spiriti in 1947. A woman called Linda Cervita was killed, then dismembered, placed in a trunk, and submerged in the lagoon right in front of the cursed building. The reason for her murder was a fairly large amount of money she had on herself. Linda lived in Bologna, where she managed her family's bar. She had arrived in Venice to buy cigarettes to resell on the black market, which was flourishing after World War II. Linda was killed by Bartolomeo Toma, who was a gambler, and his accomplice, Luigi Sardini, who was a gondolier. The trunk with her body was found 2 weeks later by a local fisherman. Due to all these incidents and the building's lamentable reputation, it is said that to this day the fishermen of Venice refuse to fish in front of the Casino degli Spiriti. It is a unique building.
It is. But yeah, no fishing with our dead bodies in boxes. No bueno. Alright, so we're moving off to the Palazzo Mastelli della Campiello. It's the House of Mysterious Statues. And this is not far from the previous location. It's about, did we actually find how far it was?
What? Oh dear.
We said not far, but
Uh,
you didn't look it up. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, sorry. I mean, granted, you also have to measure by boat to get there, probably.
Yeah. Just about, I think roughly from one end of Venice to the other, nothing's more than like an hour walk. It's at least
It's
like
compact.
at least Venice proper.
Yeah.
There's other outlying islands, a couple of which we will touch on, but the part of town with like the Grand Canal and that, you could probably walk from one end to the other in about an hour.
Alright, so this building is, of course, adorned with some rather curious statues. They depict three men with rather startled faces, plus one of them wears a rather large turban. In addition, there's a bas relief with a camel. Now, there's an old Venetian legend claiming that the statues are petrified former owners of the palace from 1100 AD. They were three rich silk and spice merchants, Robaya, Afrani, and Sandi, who tried to scam a very rich Venetian lady by selling her some low-quality textiles for a very expensive price. She had been recently widowed and had inherited a tailoring workshop. Discovering the scam, the widow cursed the money she paid, and when the dishonest merchants touched it, they and their camel turned to stone. Despite the fate of the three scammers, the Venetians believe that if you touch the nose of the statue of Signor Antonio Ribaro, you will have luck in your business affairs. This belief was born after the statue lost its original stone nose in the 19th century, and it was then redone with a piece of iron. Just 12 years ago, the statue was the victim of a rather unpleasant incident. On the night of April 30th of 2010, the statue was decapitated. The head was discovered a few days later on May 3rd, and the statue was restored. Today you can still visit the statue and run its nose in the hopes that you will be granted some luck that, of course, the shady merchants were not. Something like kissing the Blarney Stone, huh?
Yeah, basically. And I did look up a picture of this. I'll see if I can find it and drop it in the chat, a link to it. This nose does not fit with the statue. It was a very... It talked about...
It was a bad nose job.
It was the worst of nose jobs. It was a total hack job. But yeah, I'll see if I can find a link to that and drop it in the chat because, wow.
Yeah. I just thought that was kind of a fun little
It is
legend.
fun.
Any questions?
Keep them coming. Lots of murders.
Yeah, there were quite a few murders on this one.
Got Paul here from Georgia, who has been to Venice. Beautiful, and the cigarette black market is doing very well.
That does not surprise me.
Yep. But, yeah, so, yeah, that's it for the moment.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about the most haunted place on Earth. I know we say this a lot because there are a lot of places that like to claim this one, but I think this one might actually win. This is Poveglia. It's a location you've probably heard of. It's notorious for its grim history, and it's officially off limits to visitors, though a lot of people try. Again, we do not in any way, shape, or form suggest you go and try to find this. You can go by it by boat, but don't try to get off. Now, it's said to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, and it is set south of the city proper. This small island in the Venetian lagoon has faced the brunt of local evils. Originally, it was used as a port in the centuries after the Roman Empire. The use of the isolated spot of land turned into a plague dump. During the many outbreaks of plague that devastated Venice, the plague victims, both alive and dead, would be taken there and would be buried on the island or taken there to die. The island became one giant burial ground with over 160,000 people laid to rest there. It was known as the Island of No Return. After lying almost abandoned for years, in 1922, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island. The hospital was run by a cruel doctor who performed horrific experiments on his patients, who he deemed less than human. Located so far away from the prying eyes of the city, the doctor felt like he could do whatever he wanted here. It didn't even take much to be sent there to, to the asylum. Any understanding of mental illness was in its infancy at this time, let alone actually providing the mentally ill with any helpful treatment. The doctor was thought to have been driven mad, perhaps by the plague ghosts of the island who were trying to protect the innocent souls he was abusing. The doctor attempted to commit suicide by jumping off the hospital bell tower. But, in almost a twist of fate, he survived the jump. His injuries were traumatic, and eventually he would succumb to his wounds, but not without tremendous amount of suffering. The hospital closed in 1968, and since then the island has been off limits to anyone. Fishermen won't even approach its shores because they believe the island is cursed. Locally, it's believed that the soil is mixed with the ashes of the people who died and who were buried there. The buildings have been left to the elements and are literally falling apart. People have heard agonizing screams and cries coming from the abandoned island late at night. Now, is that the sound of the buildings falling down, or the ghosts crying out in the night? We'll let you decide. But if you actually look at pictures of this place, it is really creepy. It's right up there with Isle of Dolls.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, it is. Yeah, it's something. Question: have we investigated rolling hills? We have not.
We have not. I'm trying to remember.
I'm not even sure if.
It sounds familiar.
I'm not even sure if Steve and company have been up there yet.
I think I've come across some stories from there, but I don't know about investigations.
Yeah. Good question, though.
We'll have to
we
message our friend Steve and find out if he's been there or not.
Yeah, we try to, as much as we try to get out for investigations,
the tours take a lot of our time.
Yes, but we do get out from time to time.
Yes. And if I ever win the lottery, you can bet Haunted Richmond is buying 2 haunted buildings.
Go ahead and read one more. I need to...
You need to Google?
Yes, I need the pictures, I promise.
Okay. Alright, so now we're going to talk about some of the famous locations in all of Venice. And this is the San Marco and San Todaro columns and the Calle dell'Orto. Morte, excuse me. One of the most famous locations in all of Venice, and maybe all of Italy, is of course the San Marco Square. It's a broad plaza in front of St. Mark's Basilica, and it's surrounded by beautiful architecture and a variety of monuments. At the southern end of the square, where it meets the water, are 2 columns that have long been symbols of Venice, the Colonnio di San Marco and Colonnio di San Todaro. Given their celebrated status, it surprises many to learn that they don't have a glorious past. When the columns were first being transported to Venice from Constantinople, the ship carrying them tipped over and a 3rd column sank into the sea, and it remains there today. In the shadow of the first 2 columns from the Middle Ages through the Renaissance until the mid-18th century, the space between the 2 landmarks was used as a place of capital executions for the many hundreds of thieves and enemies of the Republic, murderers, and of course this was all under the direction of the Council of Ten, a feared governing body that ruled the city from 1310 to 1797. With eyes everywhere, the council used and abused its network of hundreds of anonymous informants, condemning many to prison and death based on rumors, secrets, and lies. So much so that the superstitious custom still persists in the local population in Venice today. You do not cross the space between the columns, as it brings eternal bad luck. I wonder if everybody who was in that house walked through those columns. Just a thought.
Yes, okay. That worked. So, I got a link to the statue in there, and the other place, the creepy looking place...
The island?
Yeah.
Alright, now, while we're on the topic of executions, just a little to the east of columns is the Calle della Morte can be found, and it translates into the Alley of Death. The alley was a very popular spot for people to be put to death, but not in the same public spectacle that could be witnessed at San Marco Square. When noblemen were condemned to death by the Venetian council, they would not be notified right away. The council feared that their victim, the guilty party, would escape before the sentence could be carried out. So they would trick them into coming into this street where they would be killed. Now, this alleyway is extremely narrow, and there would be no escape once somebody started after you here. You would think after the first few times somebody would have caught on to this trick, but I guess news doesn't travel back during the medieval times, not like we have our cell phones today. And of course, dead men tell no tales. Arr. Arr.
Arr.
Begins with a P.
Where? Wait, what?
Keep going.
What am I missing?
You're looking for the name, aren't you?
Oh, no, I got that one.
Okay. Well, it's your turn.
Pavlova?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that one. This creepy looking building, the House of the Mysterious Statues. I got the statue.
Yeah, well, I thought you were looking for the island.
I got that.
Okay. Are you ready to read?
Sure.
Because now you get to talk about the skeleton.
Hmm?
So now you get to talk about the skeleton.
Okay. Yes. All right. So, now, if you meander to the north from St. Mark's Basilica, you may eventually find your way to the Basilica di Sante Giovanni di Paolo. If you're in this area after midnight, you may greet a giant looking to buy his bones back. A giant? Well, almost.
It's not Andre.
Yeah. According to legend, he's one of the last bell ringers of St. Mark's Bell Tower, clocking in at nearly 7 feet tall. The bell ringer's height made him such a local celebrity that the director of a scientific institute offered him a large sum of money to leave his skeleton to science upon death. The giant bell ringer agreed to the offer, rationalizing that he would outlive the institute director and the deal would be forgotten. The bell ringer, after receiving the advance payment and starting to go out every night drinking himself into oblivion. Soon his excess drinking led to his premature death. The bell ringer's skeleton went on display at the Museo di Storia Naturale di Valencia. Posthumously, the bell ringer bitterly regretted the deal, and it's said that to this day he haunts the Bresana court next to the Basilica di Sante Giovanni di Paolo. Nearby residents say that every night, just before midnight, the skeleton walks out of the museum to Piazza San Marco, where he climbs up to the top of the bell tower, rings the bells, then walks the streets towards his home on Bresana Court, begging for money to buy his skeleton back. Then there is another skeleton story as well.
Because skeletons.
Because skeletons. Circling back to the north end of town in the Siestra de Capitango, you can find the Campo de la Bassa. In the darkness of the night, you may come across an old man with a large sack on his back. He will beg you to help him, but you must deny your inner angels. Do not agree to help, and most definitely do not look him in the eye. For if you do, the legend says that you will turn into a burning skeleton, a vision that will haunt you until the end of your days. This is the usurer Bartolomeo Zene. For reference, an usurer was an individual who would lend money at unreasonably high rates. Think ye old payday lender. Apparently, he was a very selfish man during his life, so much so that on May 13th, 1437, when there was a terrible fire at Campo de la Bassa, Zene refused to help his neighbors who were trying to save their children from the flames. Instead, he grabbed his sack of gold and jewels, thus forever condemning his soul. While he may still have his riches in death, it seems that he is cursed to forever know what it is like to be denied assistance when one's need is so dire. I like this one. This was a fun little one here. So, back down to the eastern end of Venice, not far from the Venetian arsenal, we have a different type of story to mirror the selfishness of Bartolomeo Zene. This story concerns the churchyard of Chiesa de San Francisco della Vigna. Today, from the outside, the churchyard is very difficult, if not impossible, to lay eyes on, as it is enclosed within a very high wall. This is unfortunate, as it denies us the opportunity to have the same experience as a man did in a November many years ago. In November, darkness falls early in Venice. Its tall buildings block the failing daylight at a time when the days are already growing shorter as winter approaches. On one evening, a man found himself caught out late, enveloped by the blackness of the night. Being a good man, he feared robbers lurking in the shadows, and he cursed himself for having no means of making a light. The man spotted lights moving in the churchyard at Chiesa di San Francisco de la Vigna, and he hurried closer to see if anyone had a spare. At a parade, he found a parade of men slowly moving around the edge of the graveyard, each holding a candle. One of the men, gaunt and melancholy, paused when he saw the hapless wanderer. He crossed the graveyard and handed his light to him, saying, "Best not be out here so late without a light," in the local Venetian language, of course. The man agreed, took the offered light with many thanks, and hurried home. The following morning he discovered the grisly truth. The light he'd used the night before was now a dried, shriveled hand. He almost fainted as he realized that he had encountered one of the many ghosts of Venice. Still, he wasn't about to rob one of the dead of a body part. That night he returned to the churchyard and found the parade of men continuing their patrol around the edge of the graveyard. All but one held aloft a light. The man ran up to the lost soul who helped him the night before. Swallowing his fear, he gave him the dried hand. The ghost smiled, and his hand became a light once more.
Fun little trick.
It is.
Better than the monkey's paw. That's how Patrick was commenting.
Giant skeleton pre-Home Depot.
Yes, definitely.
It's on our.
It's on our purchasing list.
It is on our shopping list.
All right, the Grassi Palace. This is in central Venice, facing the Grand Canal. It was first built in the 1500s, and it was completely rebuilt in the 1700s, resulting in the building we find there today. This actually makes it one of the newest structures on the Grand Canal. Since 1951, the Palazzo Grassi has served as an art museum in one form or another. In the 1980s, the museum was evolving and underwent a major renovation. During this time, a night watchman was walking through the building when he heard a young girl's voice. The voice screamed, "Stop!" And the night watchman froze in place and turned on his light. He looked about, but he couldn't see anything. He was moving more slowly now in order to keep an eye out for the person whose voice he had heard, when suddenly he noticed a huge hole in the floor. The voice had been warning him to stop before falling to his death. After asking around, the owners discovered that years ago, a young girl had been thrown off the balcony into the courtyard below. She had been trapped in an abusive living situation and unfortunately died at the hands of her abuser. It seems now she tries to protect others around the palace from any kind of suffering. Today it's a contemporary art museum funded and curated by the billionaire and contemporary art collector Francois Pinot. And if you are not a contemporary art aficionado, you may find the museum worth a visit for the beautiful architecture alone. And who knows, maybe you'll have opportunities to cross paths with this spirit who's a little hopeful from generations ago. Just making sure there are no questions.
No questions.
Okay. So this is called The Drowned Man of Campiello by Remer. And this is just to the north and on the other side of the Grand Canal. We have a cautionary tale of jealousy, murder, and madness. The best type, of course. In the 16th century, a Venetian nobleman called Lorenzo fell in love and was married to the niece of the Doge. Lorenzo was unfortunately a horribly jealous man who later accused his wife of adultery. Despite her fierce denials, he chased her from their home with a sword and ended up beheading her in front of her uncle, the Doge himself. The Doge refused to take his hands with Lorenzo, and as punishment, the Doge ordered Lorenzo to carry his dead wife's body to the Pope in Rome to ask for forgiveness. The Pope refused to see him, so Lorenzo walked back to Venice, still carrying the decomposing body of the wife he so badly betrayed. After his return to Venice in a bout of madness, he threw himself into the lagoon. His ghost can still be reported to be seen on the Grand Canal coming out of the water, carrying his wife's head.
A little grim. And he got off easy.
He did.
I'm sorry, but if you had a family member in front of me,
I'm gonna behead you.
yeah.
Just how I'm gonna do it.
Yep.
But he didn't want to sully his hands.
No, this is true.
And he was the leader.
Let's hire somebody else to do it.
Got an alleyway for that.
Yeah, that's true. So, now, at the far end of Venice, we can find the Giardini della Vienna. I'm guessing I got that close enough. Maybe I haven't quite had enough to drink it. I don't know. But anyways, this is in a newer section of Venice, relatively speaking, that sits on drained swamplands, courtesy of orders from Napoleon Bonaparte. So, newer, as in only a couple centuries ago. Now, here you can find an imposing statue of Garibaldi, the hero of Italian unification. Pay close attention to the bronze statue of the soldier standing proudly on guard right behind Garibaldi's back. This soldier is Giuseppe Zoli, a young man native to Venice who was so dedicated to Garibaldi that he swore an oath to always guard the back of the Italian hero.
Wingman.
Yep. Zoli, a student at the University of Padua, joined Italy's independence war in 1859. He became one of the Camici Rossi, which is red shirts, the volunteers who followed Garibaldi.
G-Man.
Yeah. After his death, Zoli was buried in the island of San Michele, the cemetery of Venice. Zoli's statue was placed at its current spot in the Biennial Gardens after a curious incident in 1921. This is when people started reporting sightings of a ghostly soldier dressed in a red shirt who would trip and tug passers-by in the vicinity of the Garibaldi monument. But after some time, people began to report seeing a young ghost in a red shirt wandering the gardens asking for Garibaldi. Seeing as this ghost was clearly Giuseppe Zoli, and did not plan on leaving Garibaldi alone, designers made him his own statue behind Garibaldi. Since then, no one has spotted the spirit of Zoli, but that's likely because he finds himself right where he thinks he belongs, at Garibaldi's back.
Wingman.
Yep. Forever wingman. Now, speaking of the cemetery and whatnot, dedicating an island for you. Am I amusing?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good.
Can I have some whiskey?
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yours.
Dedicating an island for the use as a cemetery makes sense within a city like Venice. A Napoleonic edict required city officials to bury the dead away from population centers, so the authorities chose the Isola di San Cristofono della Pace to the north of Venice proper, in 1807 for this purpose. And 30 years later, they filled the canal between the island and its neighbor, the Isola di San Michele, to create a single cemetery island. The island, and the waters around it, has links with other ghosts in Venice. In November 1904, a terrible fog rolled in around the city. A Vaporetto captain reluctantly set off for Burano to take workers home after a long day.
So it's like a little taxi.
Yeah, and Burano is actually, I think it's the area to the north of the cemetery. So it's still part of Venice, but it's...
It's a suburb.
yes, suburb, basically. Now, no, not Burano, I'm sorry. It's the next place. It's two gondolas full of people from Murano also set off from the jetty on the other side of the cemetery island. It's Murano is that northern suburb. So, anyways. The gondoliers gave the Vaporetto a 10-minute head start. The fog thickened out on the water and the Vaporetto captain decided to turn back. The gondolas were right behind him and he didn't see them in time. The Vaporetto split one gondola in two, throwing its passengers into the water. The Burano workers hauled 4 of the passengers onto the Vaporetto's deck, but 5, all women, disappeared. A long search ensued well into the night. The following morning, rescuers found one woman clinging to a post. She unfortunately died minutes after reaching Murano. Search parties found 2 more dead later that day, yet there was no sign of Teresa Sandin or a little girl, Josepina Gabrielle Carmelo. In September 1905, Teresa's sister reported a harrowing dream. Teresa came to her telling her she was bound at the bottom of the canal between the Cemetery Island and the Fondamente Nove. If her sister prayed for her, she'd be released. 10 days later, a battered body turned up nearby. Her sister identified Teresa by the scarf around her neck. Giuseppina never resurfaced, though some say she rides the waves in a floating casket lit by 4 candles on its corners on foggy nights. Trade.
Alright, Santa Maria Formosa. One little fact as we move along here. Bell towers across Europe in the medieval era were the only way that people knew what was going on in a city. The bells tolled for the start and the end of the workday. They told to mark danger incoming into the city, and even to mark a celebration. But whatever they were used for, they had great influence over the people of the city. Therefore, many of the bell towers in Venice have a carving sculpted on the floor of the tower. These carvings were often grotesque, and they were used to ward off the devil, to ensure he didn't enter to ring the bells and cause chaos in the city. Near the center of Venice stands the church of San Maria Formosa. The carving at the door of the bell tower at San Maria is one of the best examples of the grotesque ward. This carving is said to howl out at night when he senses that the devil is near. Others say, that the cries are something much darker, and that the carving is actually a demon trapped in the stone. So if you're brave enough to visit the city in this carving, be careful to watch and see if the eyes follow you as you move on by. I saw Patrick whispering at the chat. Always a bride, never a wife. If you wander the streets and the plazas of Venice at night, you may come across an apparition of a young bride. This is Tosca, who is looking for her ring finger with her wedding ring attached to it so she can marry her beloved. Tosca was a beautiful but impoverished girl from Tresia, the north of Venice. She was betrothed to marry a much older, yet very rich nobleman. However, she fell in love with a young hunter and escaped to Venice with him. The jilted nobleman found out the young lovers were there and killed the hunter and cut off Tosca's wedding finger, shouting, if he couldn't have her, nobody would. Tosca took her own life on September 22nd, 1379. To this day, many say they have seen her ghost wandering the streets of Venice dressed as a bride and looking for her ring finger. The Philosopher's Ghost. Giordano Bruno, the 16th century Dominican friar, philosopher, mathematician, poet, cosmological theorist, well, let's just say he did a lot of things, was the one who opposed the then accepted genocentric doctrine of the Catholic Church. Okay, if you're not familiar with this, the church doctrine of the era was unequivocally stated that the earth was at the center of the universe and every other celestial body, most notably the sun, revolved around the earth. Anything else was blasphemous and often got you killed. Just saying. Alright, so obviously he was arrested by the Venetian Inquisition on May 22nd of 1592 based on the denunciation of the local patrician Giovanni Martinotto. It was, in fact, Giovanni who had invited Goriano to Venice. Yet the patricians soon felt unhappy with the teachings he received from the philosopher and started to dislike him as a person. From Venice, Goriano was extradited to Rome, tried for 7 years, finally declared a heretic, and burned at the stake in 1600. I did mention they tended to kill you, right? Allegedly, he replays this betrayal of his former host, Giovanni, by haunting his palace, the Ca' Massiano in Venice. Apparently, on the anniversary of the philosopher's death, February 17th, strange occurrences relate to the water occur there. For example, pipes would burst, flooding the rooms. Others believe that the face of Giordano would engulf in flames and can sometimes be seen in the upper right window of the palace. I mean, he's got a legitimate reason to be miffed. Legitimate reason to be miffed.
I think I would be too.
Alright, Patrick, this section's for you. We have come to the cryptoids and legendary animals. Because, you know, they've got a few.
Do I get to read?
You get to talk about this.
Alright, let me get my screens back where
There we go. Because say, I'm not a map.
No. Alright. Now,
What did you do?
I closed the script.
You close the script.
And now I gotta find back where we were. How did I do that? I'm hopeless.
Okay. While we're doing this, it's getting warm here, so
It is warm in here.
I'm going to...
The AC's cranking now.
It is.
Anyways, so, the promised cryptoid. Punta della Dogana is the triangular edge which cuts between the Grand Canal and the Giudecca Canal. Giudecca Canal.
Gesundheit.
Yeah, thank you. And points straight into the basin of St. Mark's. It's one of the most photographed spots in Venice, as just further up from it is the rather photogenic body of its Santa Maria della Salute church. Allegedly a cousin of Scotland's Loch Ness Monster, inhabits the swirling waters just off the tip of Punta della Dogana. This beast's body resembles a large, dark-colored snake, while the head looks horse-like. It hides in a hollow beneath the land. Fishermen swear that the sea serpent appears out of the dark waters on moonless nights, earning it the nickname the Black Water Monster. One witness in 1933 claims he saw the serpent rise above the surface to catch and eat a seagull in a single gobble. Head over to the Punta della Dogana. I should have edited more of these words out. On dark moonless nights, totally at your own peril.
You're hoping to be a little more liquefied by this point.
Something. Fishermen swear they have seen the creature, although no evidence of its existence has been proven yet. If you decide to go hunting for this creature, keep your camera at the ready, and you may be the first to land credible evidence of its existence.
I wonder if there's a reward for a good photo of this one like there is for Nessie.
I would think so. Should be. If you catch a picture of it, well, go ahead and market it off to the highest bidder. Anyways, so now moving on, we have another creature here. Now, in the past centuries, elephants would sometimes come to Venice as part of a circus or a traveling show. There is a tragic story about an elephant in Venice which in 1819 managed to escape its cage on Riviera degli Schiavoni and trampled through the Sestriere of Castello. The terrified animal caused much damage, destroying houses, staircases, and doorways as it went. Terrified Venetians ran to hide, and a group of soldiers pursued the elephant with their rifles. Finally, the elephant ran inside the church of San Antonin, where its foot got stuck in a tombstone, allowing the Venetians chasing it to finally catch and shoot it. But killing it outright wasn't enough for them. They brought it to St. Mark's Square and executed the animal with a hand cannon. The poor elephant was no doubt just really scared and didn't deserve this horrific end. If you listen closely when you stand near the church of San Antonin, you can sometimes hear the stomping of huge footsteps, thought to be the ghostly stomps of the elephant who once went rampaging throughout the city. Now, we got a couple more. Yeah. Ooh, witches?
Witches.
Witches?
Witches.
Is it you?
No.
Me? Okay. So, many unorthodox ladies lived in Venice through the centuries, from courtesans able to compose elaborate poems and having their own literary salons, to nuns who would freely entertain in more ways than one the Venetian noblemen. Venice was a hotbed of activity day and night. Now, Elena Draga was a woman of many talents, and most remarkably, of many different personalities. She was, she said, possessed by evil spirits and could divine the future and perform magical rituals. After the plague in 1582, only 2 spirits remained in her. One was mute, and the other was called Ferran Drago. Elena openly complained of the terrors to which the spirits subjected her, from physical maladies to the desire to finish herself off. To the desire to finish with herself. That, yes. Curiously, Elena was tried for witchcraft several times, and each time she managed to talk herself out of being prosecuted. Not a small feat for the era. Aside from Elena, in the labyrinthine streets near the Academia Gallery is the quiet Calle della Toletta, where a so-called witch's clock keeps the neighborhood ticking. Hanging off exterior piping is an old-school alarm clock. Legend says that a witch once lived here and dabbled in the business of black magic. She used the alarm to remind her customers to pay their payments were due. When she died, the local residents hung an alarm clock on the building in jest. Years later, it was removed, and the neighbors began to talk of strange happenings, odd sounds, and random accidents. The clock was returned to its position, and the events stopped. Years later, the clock was removed, and the neighbors again claimed unexplained events, so the clock was placed back permanently.
You don't move a witch's clock.
Nope. Then, there is the curious story in which a Venetian fishing boat is used every night by 7 witches to travel around the world to practice witchcraft. The owner of the boat, a fisherman, soon suspected that his boat was being used by somebody else. One evening he hid on the boat and waited. The 7 witches soon arrived, said an incantation, and headed straight to Alexandria in Egypt. They arrived in a record for that time period. The witches moored the boat and went on their business. The fisherman, completely stupefied by the night's events, also came out of the boat and picked a branch off a date palm which was covered with fruit. He then hid back on the boat. Later on, the witches returned, said their incantation, and the boat flew back to Venice as quick as the wind. The fisherman was not discovered by the witches, and he used the branch covered in fresh dates, which at that time only grew in Egypt, to convince his friends that indeed he had been on that incredible journey.
You got proof?
Yep. And then there is the tale of the Melusi.
It's
Now,
our last one.
what?
Time-wise, it should be our last one.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're running out of time.
Where?
Yeah.
Okay.
You lost the spot.
So, now, a Melusine is a mermaid with 2 tails. There is a well-known Venetian legend telling the story of the poor fisherman, Oreo, kind of like Oreo, except you take the E and replace it with an I, so Oreo, who fell in love with a Melusine. They got married, but the Melusine fell ill and died after birthing 3 children. However, even after her death as a human, she would return to the house in the shape of a snake to tidy up and take care of the household and her kids. This continued until Oreo saw the snake, and unaware that it was his beloved Melusine, he killed it, thus losing her forever. To remind us of this tragic love story, there is a red brick heart built into the wall of Sottoparengo de Prete. Allegedly, this is where Oreo's house used to be. It is widely believed that if you touch the heart, you will find luck and love within a year. Let's see. Statues. Oh, no, we have to tell this one because we already hinted at it.
Oh.
So, just a little bit more. So, anyways, there's the statue of the Madonna dell'Orto is in the church of the same name in the Siestre de Catenango. It is made by the local sculptor Giovanni di Sante. He put the statue in his garden after it was rejected by the priest of the local church, which at the time was dedicated to Saint Christopher Martyr. The wife of the sculptor noticed that the statue would glow in the night. Soon people started to arrive in their droves to worship the statue, which was considered miraculous. The statue was placed inside the church on June 18, 1377, and soon afterwards the name of the church was changed to the Church of Madonna dell'Orto, or Madonna of the Garden. You can still see the statue in the church to this day. It's in a side chapel, which is very peaceful and quiet. Now, this is the one that we had referred to because this was, you mentioned the alley, murder alley. So, Rio Terra degli Assassini translates into the Assassin's Street and the adjacent Assassin's Bridge. This bridge connected the more upscale neighborhood of San Marco to the red light district where you could find all the best brothels. The street is very narrow and often was extremely dark. Venetian noblemen, eager not to be seen, would often choose to walk through it on their way to the nearby brothels. Caught in that tight spot, they were an easy prey for robbers and murderers, hence the name of the street and the bridge. There is a very famous Venetian legend referencing the Ponte degli Assassini. In 1507, a humble baker, Piero Tosca, was beheaded in Venice. Under torture, he had confessed to the murder of a noble Venetian. In fact, the poor baker had come across the nobleman laid dead in the corner between Castel della Mandola, where the brothels used to be, and the Bridge of Assassins. Piero picked the bloody knife up off the ground, seduced by the silver blade and the gems adorning the handle. He was then found with this incriminating evidence in his possession. The real murderer confessed to his crime on his deathbed only a few weeks after Piero's beheading. This grave miscarriage of justice led to the birth of the phrase "Ricordeve del Padro Fortunato," remember the poor baker, which the Secretary of the Council of the Ten would allegedly utter to the councillors prior to the passing of a sentence. In remembrance of the poor baker, 2 red candles used to be lit every night between 2 arches on the south side of St. Mark's Basilica. Some people have been said to smell freshly baking bread floating through the air here, even in the dead of night. We'll wrap it up there.
Yep.
There's a couple more here, but we can go ahead and save them for, I'm sure, an inevitable Haunted Italy episode or something like that.
Definitely.
So, I will go ahead, I will flag those and get them started on a Haunted Italy script. But, Chris's Italian meets Beth's cryptid hand puppeteering. What more can you ask for? my god awful Italian. There's a few words I know. Just a few, as was clearly exhibited tonight. I think I scared off many of the guests.
Alright, with that.
But thank you all very much for joining us this evening to, it wasn't too much of a train wreck.
No.
It was,
Ignore the bad Italian.
ignoring the bad Italian. It was fun. And, yeah, I should have spent a little more time editing and, just saying the Italian phrase once and then doing the English translation. Because,
Noted for Haunted Italy.
Yeah, noted for Haunted Italy or for any other foreign language location where I'm a little iffy on the native tongue. So, but yeah, so anyways,
what are we doing in 2 weeks?
Pirates!
Pirates, arr!
So yeah, 2 weeks from today, we have Pirate Ghost Stories. 2 weeks after that, we have Gates of Hell. Or Gates to Hell, if you will. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to have one October episode as we have done in the last couple of years because October.
And that's the 17th?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't have my phone near me to look.
That is going to be the 3rd edition of our Creepy
Doll.
and Haunted Dolls. Yes, the list of creepy and haunted dolls never
Continues.
ends.
It
Never
continues.
ends. So we got a handful more of creepy haunted doll stories to share with you in October.
Yeah.
And
I have not figured out November yet.
we'll get there. Though. We'll get there.
That's maybe Thursday I start to figure that out. We'll see. Let's see, we already went over our new tour and our Scares the Care, so definitely check those out.
Yep. Yep, so yeah, Scares the Care, October, benefit tour, October 22nd. It's going to be up here at Church Hill, 9 o'clock. Tickets are on sale on the website now, so you can come on out, get your Churchill Chillers tour, and your ticket purchase will go to Scares the Care.
Yep.
So you can come on out, have a good time, and support a good cause.
Yes, and Trisha will be there with merchandise with G as well.
I think so.
Yep.
As far as I know, Trisha and G, both Scares the Care reps here in Virginia, will be there. So be good to have them there. And yeah, it's going to be...
It's going to be a busy season.
Yep. Crazy as always, but we are looking forward to it. And yeah.
Key West, yes, you can still purchase for Key West. I cannot tell you the prices, but they are in contact with the hotel to get updated prices for our Key West trip in December.
Yep.
So you can, again, still click on the link and go and have a chat with our travel agents and join us for that. Again, that's the first full weekend in December, and we're staying at a haunted location. We are investigating 2 haunted locations, and we're having dinner one night at a haunted brewery.
Yep.
So.
Spooky stuff abound.
Yes.
Yep. So it's going to be it'll be fun. It's all going to be fun. I sound like I'm trying to convince myself of that. I'm not. It is going to be fun.
We're just tired today because we didn't sleep well last night.
No, did not sleep well last night, and it was a busy weekend.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
All right. So with that, we will see you all in 2 weeks for Pirates, and I hope you all have some good times in between now and then. Have a safe Labor Day weekend.
Yep. And I will come back. I'll try to respond to a few of the comments that are lingering here in the chat. So I will respond after we go ahead and tune out. But in the meantime, you all have a good evening. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you again in a couple weeks, or even better yet, come on out and see us on a tour sometime.
Yeah.
So, gonna be a good one.
All right. With that, we'll say cheers, and I will let you turn it off because you will get there faster than if I'm trying to get out of the seat.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for using